Today's boot camp challenge is all about quotations because sometimes the best thing to say, someone else has already said. So instead of paraphrasing them, why not use their exact words? But we need to format them correctly to make sure we're showing the reader they aren't our words, they're someone else's. Otherwise, it's called plagiarism. So to start with, we need to find a quote. Quote number 9 in your handout says it's a quote about Miss Panther from Dr. Kiefer. And it says, I don't know about her. Sometimes she seems okay, but sometimes she acts crazy. We need to start our quote by giving credit to the source. So who is the source? Dr. Kiefer. So we start by writing, Dr. Kiefer says. You could also change says to things like said, or if you want to get more creative, you could add things like Mrs. Kiefer grinned, Mrs. Kiefer whispered, Dr. Kiefer shouted. You can change the phrase to make it more interesting, but we always need to give credit to the person that is speaking. Next comes a comma, for a good reason. The comma makes the reader stop because something important is about to happen. Dr. Kiefer's about to say something. So we add in the comma to make sure the reader pauses and realizes that something important is about to be said. We also want to make sure that whatever someone else says is using their exact words. And the way we show the reader that we're using the person's exact words is with quotation marks. Those are a symbol that say, this is no longer my words, it's Dr. Kiefer's. Now as I look at the quote, it's a little confusing. I don't know about her. Who is her? You might be tempted to replace her with Miss Panther. However, it would no longer be Dr. Kiefer's exact words. If you want to change a word to its synonym, you can do it in a quote, but you have to use a tool to show your reader that it's a different word with the same meaning. We use brackets. That way the reader knows, even though Dr. Kiefer didn't say Miss Panther, that's what she meant. Also, there are times in quotes where maybe they talked a little too long and you don't want to use the entire thing. For example, I don't know about Miss Panther. Sometimes she seems okay, but sometimes she acts crazy. What if we wanted to just take out the sometimes she seems okay, but sometimes? We can't just cross it off because then it would no longer be exactly what Dr. Kiefer said. Whenever you take something out of a quote, you need to put something else back into it. We call it, in layman's terms, the ... In smart people world, it's called the ellipse. So go ahead and elevate your language and say it with me, ellipse. So now we have cited our source, use a comma to get the reader to slow down. We used a quotation mark to show the reader these are no longer our words. So let's rewrite our quote. I don't know about, because we changed the word, we have to use brackets, Miss Panther. Now we took out a big section, so we need to replace it with a ... or an ellipse. She acts crazy. We're at the end of our sentence, so we need to add a period, and since this is where the quote stops, anything else that comes after it is going to be your own words again. So we need to show a quotation mark in order to tell the reader we are no longer quoting our source. If you ever get confused about where to put the punctuation, if it's inside or outside, here's a cheesy trick that I use. Yes, it's cheesy, but you'll always remember it. The period, it's small, it's tiny, it's little. So keep it inside because it's cold outside. I know, cheesy, but you'll never forget it. So now you know how to create a quote. Make sure to do the next 3 questions on your own. Compare answers with your group. When you think you're ready to show the sergeant, raise your hands and be patient. She'll want to make sure that you've shown you know how to use both brackets and ellipses in the quotes below, or else she'll make you start over. Once she approves that you are ready to move on to the next boot camp challenge, it's simple. Take the newspapers on your table and find different quotes that you can cut out and add to your piece of butcher paper. You may have to check for their grammar to make sure they did things like adding commas, quotation marks, and they put their punctuation inside the quote. If you need to make any changes, do so with your red marking pen. Good luck.